Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm Jose.
And we're talking about Vice today.
Yes.
Written and directed by Adam McKay, who, well, you probably know him from The Big Short, which was his previous film. That was from 2015.
Yes.
That was the dramatisation of the modern Wall Street crash, based on the book by Michael someone, I forget his name, who was the guy who was behind Moneyball. So it had all this kind of investigative but funny, kooky thing going on, and he's kind of turned that same style to the life of Dick Cheney.
Yes.
The most powerful vice president there's ever been, and it talks about him kind of seizing power under the nose of the American people and doing things to his ends. I wasn't that impressed.
I didn't like it. I mean, it's weird, right? Because it really, what the film is, it's an essay. It's an essay film. But whereas we're used to thinking of essay films, you know, as kind of documentaries or films working with found footage or, you know, kind of, video essays, this is like a dramatized essay film. It's almost like, you know, the kinds of plays that you get at the National Theatre, which are, you know, State of the Nation plays by David Hare or somebody like that, really. That's kind of what it feels like, with moments that are meant to be like theatrical, show-stopping moments of applause, except they don't work in the same way on film as they do in the theatre, you know. So I found it, on the one hand, inventive. I mean, it is kind of inventive. It's not as smart as it thinks it is.
No.
And it's also kind of weird in the sense that, you know, the film has, I think, some extraordinary performances. So I don't like Christian Bale at all, really. Like, he's the opposite of my idea of what a film star is. And then, you know, and then he keeps on kind of offering really great performances of very unlikable people, which he only partly humanizes. Yeah, like, I do think that on the one hand he's quite marvelous in this, but on the other hand, you never feel that he gives you an in on who Dick Cheney's meant to be.
I think that's a problem with, that's a problem with Cheney, really. And the film starts off by saying this is based on a true story, or as true as we can make it, given that Dick Cheney is the most secretive man in the world, but we did our fucking best, it says. So it kind of starts off with this cheeky thing, but it is basically saying, like, if you don't think we've really got much of a character here, sorry, but that's just the way it is. Which I don't really like.
No, I mean, that's not good enough, really.
It's not good enough. He does kind of remind me. I mean, Bale is fantastic in it. For one thing, I think the physical. I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, the word that people would use is transformation when it comes to things like this. It is an identical look to Dick Cheney. It's incredible. It makes you actually think. It's like his facial posture, the way he holds his face, and it makes you think: is that? How much of that is prosthetics? How much of that is acting? How much of that is just natural? Like, I think they might have the same mouth. You know, it's unbelievable. It's you're properly watching Dick Cheney.
Yes.
And
I don't like it. I mean, I was thinking throughout, you know, it's just such a stunt, really. And then, of course, you think, well, you know, stunts with actors is one of the pleasures of film going. You want to see how so-and-so ages, or, you know, how so-and-so youngs up. So kind of, you know, I forgave it, really. But I don't want to make more of it than it deserves. I mean, my main question really is, you know, why don't you hire an age-appropriate actor who can do something with that part? I mean, you know, kind of, you're constantly aware here of the stunt dimension to the performance. And so, for example, you know, when the film is meant to be set in 53 and 63, I think, they haven't been able to make him young enough, you know, to be like a college student, or, right, like, you could see the effects work that's gone into his face, so they've shinied up his face, you know, but he's still got a stodgy middle-aged body, really, you know. So it kind of, it draws attention to all of those things in a way that I didn't think enhanced the film at all. Really.
Oh, I disagree. I thought the look was the best thing about it. I mean, it was uncanny. I thought the likeness and the voice and the manner in which he speaks and the kind of the way he takes breaths between lines very loudly. I don't know. I'm obviously more used to the elderly Dick Cheney than any of his younger incarnations. You know, I never saw him when he was in the 70s and whatnot. But I'm kind of familiar with him from the last 15 years, and I was blown away at
Well, you're not alone. People are.
Yeah.
You know, I just think it's a stunt. But actually, the whole film is a stunt. So I mustn't let that bother me as much as it does. And you're right that Bale is incredibly good at doing that.
Yeah.
I just personally don't like it.
Fair enough. Well, that's on the kind of mimicry level, right? But we were talking about kind of getting under the surface, and it reminded me of The Fifth Estate, which was the film about Julian Assange with Benedict Cumberbatch. I don't know if you've seen it.
I think I have, yes.
I really liked that film, despite, it was not a very good film, but there were things about it I really liked, and one of the main things I liked was Cumberbatch's performance. And again, it's doing this. It's quite good mimicry. It's nothing like as physically identical as Bale is to Cheney, I think. But there are mannerisms and things that he just nails, in the voice as well. But there is a similar thing with Assange, which is you don't know who the guy is. He's slippery. That's kind of his whole thing. And so you come away from The Fifth Estate, rather like you do with Vice, going, although this is a film about this guy, I've got no way in. And you feel like maybe it's natural there be no in. That's who they are. But that's also just feels not good enough.
It feels not good enough because you expect a biography, and certainly a biographical drama, to kind of fill you in. Right? Like, we've seen Dick Cheney, some of us, most of our lives. So if all that you're going to offer is kind of like an external view, that doesn't help you understand the character better, then kind of it's a letdown. And actually, the film posits certain things as being like remarkable. So actually, it has this whole theory that life is like a series of teacups, kind of balanced on top of each other, with these key moments in your life that kind of shape it. And so the film kind of shows us those key moments. But actually, they don't help explain his character. They help explain some of his actions, and even that I wouldn't agree that it does so fully. But at least you can see how it does that. But not his character. There's some things that I just didn't understand. So, for example, there's a scene in his youth in Texas where he's been expulsed from Yale, and he's now working as a lineman. And somebody has fallen down and broken his leg, and they're treated very callously, right? Like, bring somebody else to work on the job, and give this guy $5 to go home. When he's kind of, his leg is completely destroyed, and you're meant to think that somehow marks Cheney, but actually you don't see how. So it's like it's a big empty space of. The significant moment whose significance is kind of indecipherable.
It's a signifier of like the kind of thing that a film like this shows you.
Yes.
This kind of film will show you an event like that, but actually it has no further meaning to it. It just looks like that kind of moment. It's pretty blank. And I guess at the start you kind of forgive it because you think, well, it's leading to something. The fact that it then leads to not very much is the issue. And I think the film has kind of energy, but it has energy in fits and spurts, and I think a lot of it really lulls, particularly before he becomes vice president. It has really energetic moments, but it has a lot of lulls. But then once he becomes vice president, and like you have that meeting in his office where it's him and Scooter Libby and Rumsfeld and someone else, and it's basically the four of them saying, "This is how we're going to set up." Inside the White House as like they're like like an insurgents, inside the White House, subverting their own president, saying we're going to intercept all these emails, we're going to get everything before the president does, we're going to do this, that, and the other, we are going to be in charge.
Yeah, we're going to run the country.
That's kind of amazing, that scene, I think, and the feeling around it of holy shit, this is super serious. Like I guess what I always kind of thought about Cheney was, he's in league with everyone. I mean, I guess that kind of this is one view of him. It was always kind of, he's the vice president, he's working with everyone, but he was always known to have this kind of huge amount of power and authority, and like the thing was with George W. Bush is he's his dad's mate, so there was always this implication of George W. Bush is just doing what Cheney says anyway, because Cheney's really the one in charge. But what the film puts forward is something much more insidious, of like he was doing shit without even
Yes, so there's like the secret cell inside the U.S. government that actually subverting established law under this theoretical interpretation of the president's powers. What do they call it?
It's the unitary executive theory.
That's right. Which is kind of, a theory with no basis that somebody's just drummed up. And it's just an excuse to have all the power go through the president and thus through Cheney, because of the particular agreement of power that he set up with Dick Bush, that he'd have control with George Bush, where he'd have control over the military and foreign affairs, and
in a very funny scene where when he accepts the post of vice president and he says, okay, but what I want is, he doesn't do it like this. What he does is he says, I'm doing you a favour, right? I'll take all the tough jobs and all the menial stuff, like housing and labour and foreign affairs, and just lists everything. He says, I'll do all of this and you just be president. And George Bush goes, that sounds great. It's a very funny scene.
Very funny scene.
And I'm sure there's an awful lot of truth. I mean, the thing was when he became vice president, it was this thing of, I'll lead the committee to find you a vice president. Oh, it turns out I'm the best man for the job. Which is what the film kind of shows. Although the film shows it in a way that says he still had to be talked into it. But you don't know the truth of kind of all these things.
No, you don't. But I think my interest and concern is, why use the medium of a movie to actually kind of write an essay, or to make a critical commentary? It's a state of the nation film, really, in a way, right? That's kind of what it leads to. And it is very much kind of an essay form. So if you're looking at it through drama, through kind of what story is it telling, and how do the characters and so on kind of fit into it. It's very much at a one remove, right? It's a different style to that. It's kind of, the film is doing something else, And my question then is, why do it in this form? Maybe there's a good reason that I'm not getting. To me, it feels kind of superficial and light, and and there are moments where the film gets completely energized. So, I felt the first time when Amy Adams came in, boom, like the film took off on a completely different level, and also when Sam Rockwell kind of comes in,
as George Bush.
It kind of, and it's a delight to see them. And you think, why aren't they being deployed to actually kind of show us character and dramatize story, rather than these cartoony kind of things to kind of be part of a satirical point?
Well, if you compare it to The Big Short, right? That I looked it up. The Big Short, the book was written by Michael Lewis. That's the guy. So the thing is, Adam McKay started off on like Saturday Night Live, and he worked with Will Ferrell an awful lot, and he made the Anchorman films. And
Will Ferrell was one of the producers in this film.
Yeah, and he made Talladega Nights and things. So he was in that kind of Judd Apatow stable a little bit. And then The Big Short was the film where he said, it's something different now. We're doing a dramatic thing. It's going to be and something really kind of important. So that was the story about 2008 market crash, and I think what both of these films are trying to do is that they have a kind of educational aspect to them, where one of the things that was so good about The Big Short was it would say, you have no idea what a collateralized debt obligation is. Let me explain it to you. Stop the film here. We'll get a film star, or we'll get Anthony Bourdain, or we'll get Margot Robbie.
And that was great.
And we'll explain things. This film does similar things.
Does it?
A little bit, not as much. It does it with, for instance, with the unitary executive. And I think, from my personal perspective, I knew more about American politics and Dick Cheney and all that kind of, and basically this story than I did about the details of the financial crash.
Right.
Which meant that I found all that stuff more interesting in The Big Short. Less so in this, but I talked to my brother, or actually he talked to me because he saw the film a few weeks ago. So he didn't say that much to me. But he said that he liked this more than The Big Short, and I wonder whether that difference in knowledge is part of it, because you learn more from this if you don't know as much. Well, that's kind of tautology. But I learned less from this, which I think means that whole aspect is kind of lost.
Okay, well, but for me, the other thing is I'm also much more suspicious of this.
Yes.
Because actually, I don't trust that what the film is saying about any of these things is true.
I think there's an element of that as well. I was thinking all the way through, it's saying all the kind of stuff that I would like to agree with. He's an evil man. It basically puts together this picture of Cheney as someone who is fundamentally responsible for the kind of culture of misinformation and Donald Trump. For
Fox News.
Yeah, Fox News. For the war in Iraq, for various nefarious reasons, and therefore the film goes on to say the rise of ISIS.
Yes.
It puts Cheney right in the middle of all this and tries to make an image of him as the kind of the keystone in everything that has happened over the last 25 years that's led to where we are today.
All the worst aspects of American culture, the tax breaks for the rich, the diminution of workers' rights,
lobbyists in the government,
the falsification of news, the use of the
use of different words to say things. Frank Luntz is the kind of pollster guy who he's one of the biggest pricks in the world, who said terms like was the one I saw him talking about in real life to Sean Hannity. He said, talking about healthcare in America and when it was the Affordable Care Act, he said if you use the term public option, people are in favour of it. If you use the term government option, people are against it.
Yeah.
So Sean Hannity said, I'm going to use government option from now on.
Yes.
On air. Like, you're not supposed to have that conversation in public.
Yeah.
But
in this one, it was the difference between an estate tax, which everybody approved of, or a death tax, which everybody was against.
Exactly.
Right? And so that's how they won tax deductions for the rich. Right? Everybody, as soon as you turn to the death tax, everybody's against it. So, kind of using focus groups, basically, not to find out things to solve social problems, but actually to sell people to agree to that which is against their own interests. Yeah. That's one of the points that the film makes.
So the film puts Cheney at the centre of all of this, and I think quite effectively, but you have to buy into it, and you have to believe everything it says. And like I say, what I was thinking throughout was, we might very well enjoy this, but if you show this to someone who, on the other side, what do they make of it? They probably, anything they don't like, they don't believe, or they end up coming out of it going American hero, because there's stuff in this that if you have the other sort of perspective to us, then you end up going, look at him, he fucking took down Al Qaeda, and he took down this and the other, he made this alright. Just because the film shows you things that Cheney was responsible for, doesn't automatically mean that the audience will take it the way the film kind of wants.
I know, but the film, though, is quite blunt about, showing how he worked for Unilever, was it?
Halliburton.
Halliburton.
He was CEO of Halliburton.
Yeah, and, how the whole of the Iraq War was basically a project to take over the oil fields, of which he was a great beneficiary, through his work for Halliburton. How all of that kind of policy was lots of young men losing their lives so that a few people can make tons of money. I mean, it's quite an amazing statement to make in an American film with stars. And I mean, you see this kind of critique in documentaries, but it's very rare to see it kind of so upfront in a drama, a studio drama with stars. Like an A film, really, which is what this is. So I just wish it was more convincing, that I liked it more, that I was more emotionally involved in these people. It just felt like an op-ed editorial from The Guardian, the whole film.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And yeah, I don't... It doesn't get into... I think, let's not be too unfair in it. I think it does have very interesting, very entertaining moments, or some slightly extraordinary moments. I think there are times when it kind of breaks out of that mode and ends up creating something a little bit more special.
Well, it's like when I said it's a bit like a national theater piece. So there are moments where the film stops and addresses you specifically, or cheats you, or says, "Oh, this is the end of the film. Here are the credits," and you're only like 1/3 of the way through the film, right? And so kind of, this is not the way the story ends. It continues like this. So it has kind of those very writerly, grandstanding moments, which are in their own way kind of fun, but also very annoying. So, for example, I hated, all of this voiceover narration at the beginning. So, you have like this schmucky, smart guy, kind of explaining the world to you, which I just, you think, fuck off. I have my own understanding of the world. Why should I be listening to you? Yeah. And then he kind of explains, right, who he is. And at the end of it, you find out that it was the person whose heart Dick Cheney needed for his transplant. And you just think, ugh, it's such a kind of...
Yeah, we kind of think...
It's a writer without an editor.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely too long. I think The Big Short's too long as well. You do kind of feel... The thing about the narrator is... I guess the twist was kind of fun. It's like... It's not just like someone in his life. It's the guy whose heart was donated. That's kind of interesting. But then you go... So what's actually being said here?
Yeah,
is the film being narrated by Dick Cheney's heart? But it does give you that fantastic final shot where, because the film ends on his heart transplant with this kind of montage. I think the montage, that's one of the better things of the film. That final montage I think was quite good. But it ends with this huge shot of his heart sat right in front of you, close up, and it's black and decaying, and you go like, that was his heart, sort of thing.
Yes.
But there's nothing really original about that. I mean. Anyone who's kind of familiar with American politics for the last 20 years or more will have been familiar with jokes about Cheney having no heart or having a heart made of stone or whatever. Or like on The Daily Show, it was always that he was Darth Vader. Things like that.
This is a film that made me wanna see a movie about some of the incidents that it was depicting, which I think are very dramatic, right? So you think, well, why doesn't somebody make a proper movie about this? Right, so for example, the selling out of the gay daughter at the end so that the other daughter could run for senator or representative or whatever it was. I mean, that's a drama. That's kind of parents choosing one daughter over another in the way that kind of, the films tells you they avoided a career in politics because they didn't want, to hurt this particular daughter. Yeah. So actually, what led to that selling out? What, and how did that affect all of the people involved? I mean, there's a real drama there, really, and nada.
Nothing. The film has a thing about trying to show a kind of affectionate side to Cheney. It's clear that he has this affection between him and his wife. They love each other.
Yes.
It's not like they do have an element of that business relationship, particularly early on where Cheney is really not up to much and he's a bit of a layabout and a loser, and his wife is the one going, I can't run for president but you can, so we're so like there's an element of the woman behind the man sort of thing, and she's kind of using him, but then it's very clear.
It's not that she's using him, she made him the man he is.
Well, there's but it's very clear nonetheless that they love each other.
Yes.
And it's very nice to see as well.
Yes,
and
that is nice to see.
And there's the bit where the daughter gets to the car accident and it reveals in hospital that she's gay, and it's this kind of charged moment, and you get the feeling the mum is really not into this. She says this is going to make things very difficult for you, and I think the subtext is this is going to make things very difficult for me, kind of politically. But Cheney has no qualms. He takes a second, then he basically embraces his daughter and says, doesn't matter, we love you no matter what. And like that feels like a real moment, right? I think that's exactly what the film is trying to convey.
Yes.
There's nothing sort of hidden about what he's doing there, I think. There's a moment where they're sitting around the table as a family and they're just having a lovely evening. And again, it's kind of interrupted by bombs. Like it's the whole thing of, he's having a lovely evening with a lovely meal, but he's also killing loads of people in Iraq. But these moments, what do they add up to? What do they,
well,
it's
nothing.
Trying to say, oh, he's nicer than he seems.
Yes. I mean, I think the film it's sketchy, it's a set of ideas not very well worked out, it's a pamphlet of a film, that, you know, will convince you if you have those politics, but actually, you know, as any kind of analysis, I think it lacks depth. And like I said, it's not as intelligent as it thinks it is. For me, what was wonderful about the film was the actors, you know, and I would include Christian Bale there. Amy Adams is superb. Sam Rockwell is superb. I also loved the moment with, what's his name? The waiter, who's giving him
Alfred Molina.
Yeah, Alfred Molina has a wonderful bit.
Yeah, that's one of those big short bits where it goes, let's explain something in a comedy way.
That's
it's Alfred
right.
Molina reading out a menu of all the things that Dick Cheney and his cohorts can have, such as control of the military, torture anyone you like, but call it something else. So,
Yes.
And they say, we'll have the lot.
Yes.
Yeah, that's lovely.
That's a lovely moment. And Alfred Molina makes it, you know. So those are the things that I really loved about the film. And I think if you love actors and acting, it's a film to see. And actually, for me, it's the only reason to see this film. It's the only grounds on which I would recommend this film. The actors make it.
Yeah, I agree, to be honest. It's a shame because you'd like more. You know, Dick Cheney's an interesting guy. And he is powerful and influential. Yes. And the film sort of illustrates it a little bit, but doesn't really express anything.
No.
Or build that much out of it.
Yeah, it's a combination of Saturday Night Live sketch with a budget, you know, and a kind of editorial, you know. It's kind of I don't, you know, so on the one hand you want to praise its inventiveness, you want to praise its daring. It is actually a film that is trying to do something, but on the other hand you think, well, it's just not good enough.
Yeah, yeah. It does this kind of whistle-stop tour of just the bits in Cheney's life. But like, for instance, it completely ignores Halliburton. It just puts up a bit of text saying when he stopped being in politics in '89, he became CEO of Halliburton. Like, oh, that sounds easy.
Yeah.
And then came back out of it to be vice president. It does that in a line of text on screen. I found actually the depiction of him going into politics in the first place was really I didn't have any idea how he really got into politics. It's just he's kind of doing a few things. Like, there's this montage where Lynn kind of makes him improve his life a bit, and then it's just he's got this internship with Donald Rumsfeld in the White House, in Nixon's White House. You go, how did that happen?
Yeah, I didn't like any of it. So, for example, they have that thing where, you know, he's caught driving under the influence, right at the beginning of the film. You're told that his wife gets him a scholarship to Yale, but, you know, he's drinking too much and, you know, he's expelled. So he's drinking, he's unhappy, you know, and the film tells you he's not very bright, actually. So then you think, well, you know, how does a person who's not very bright, who's not very skilled, you know, also, why is he drinking? Anyway, but how does a person with all those lacks then become one of the most powerful people in the world? And he becomes one from the beginning. Right? And so the film only tells you, oh, he doesn't speak much, he listens, you know, and the people who kind of are in the background listening are the real killers. Well, that might explain, you know, why someone, you know, gets a better office in a business. It doesn't explain how somebody becomes, like, you know, one of the most powerful men in America. And in this one for a period of 40 years or something, right?
There's an element. Have you seen W, the Oliver Stone film about George W. Bush?
No, actually, I think it's. I do like those films of Oliver Stone, I missed that one. Yeah.
It has a similar thing of like all of these great actors playing real people. It's quite fun to see, but that also has an element of, you know, basically it showing George W. Bush in his younger years as the lout and so on. This is not an unfamiliar kind of narrative to people.
Yes.
And that Barbara's his mum in it. What's George Bush's wife?
I can't remember.
Laura. Laura turns him round and says, you're gonna be Christian and you're gonna stop drinking and blah blah blah. And yeah, again, same thing to what Lynn does to Dick in this. And again, I found that kind of a little bit suspect. Probably less suspect than I did this. I think this is really kind of light on its feet and just jumps around to kind of evade any kind of investigation you might actually want to have. But it's the same sort of thing of just, okay, so he's not that bright. How did there's a funny thing of like they seem to consider the presidency in this like almost his birthright. Like he's going to become president.
Yes.
You know, it's just a matter of when and how we manage it. And there's that moment where he sees his name right at the bottom of the poll numbers, like no one likes it, and that's when he screws up the paper and says it's over. And Lynn has this look on her face of sort of it can't possibly be over, like it's destiny. It's kind of weird how they sort of see it, how they see it this way, or how it's portrayed that they see it this way of kind of. It's only one job in the country, and it only comes up once every 4 years. It's kind of mad. But then I guess that's kind of how some people think about it. I mean, there's this biography of Lyndon Johnson, and it's all about how his whole thing was, I am going to be president one day. It's just a matter of how do I get there, and there's that thing of the vice president is the kind of the first shittiest job in America because it's like you're like the first loser, and the whole thing is the vice president doesn't have anything to do. It's what they talk about in this film as well. Vice president does nothing. You're just waiting for the president to die. But then, like in Lyndon Johnson's case,
he did.
Turns out, things went well. But you kind of like, but there's nothing even that Machiavellian in here. It's not like they're saying, well, actually, there is one moment. There is that one moment where it's 9/11 has happened, and Cheney says to Bush, "We should not be together because for as a continuation of government or whatever." Yeah, continuation of government. I think continuance of government. The idea that he's basically thinking George Bush is going to die pretty soon.
Yes.
So I'm going to get out of the way to be ready for it. But that's the only time that anything that kind of evil and Machiavellian comes into play. You kind of get like he's sort of determined to be at the top, and his wife is determined to be at the top, but it's really muddled.
You don't know why. So I mean, there's lots of references. Like Steve Carell says, "Oh, you've learned how to be ruthless" or whatever. But his rise to power is not very well explained. And I think too much is made of his deficiencies, and not enough of what must have been his strengths or whatever they were. I mean, how does someone climb so high if
Yeah.
If all you're shown is them being, thick alcoholics,
Yeah, he's really dumb at the start.
Yeah, a pushy wife, can't be the only reason, right?
Right. And there's the thing of when he's first working in the White House as Rumsfeld's intern, he kind of seems nice still. He's green, basically. And later on, when he fires Rumsfeld right at the end from the Bush White House, Rumsfeld repeats this line he said once before in the film about where did you learn to become such a dick, basically. It's so ruthless and that sort of thing. And that's right, the other time he says it is when he's talking about all the people that he's hired to staff the White House when they first take over power in 2000. And Rumsfeld says, "What about your dad's mates? Where are they?" And he says, "They weren't offered jobs at this time."
Yes.
And he says, "God, you're so ruthless." So there's this thing of how even Rumsfeld is kind of, because you see Rumsfeld right from the start is ruthless and has no friends and will tell people all the So you get like, oh, he's kind of learned it from Rumsfeld, but then even Rumsfeld is not used to, or is surprised at just how far Cheney's gone. But again, it's just an indication of something, and there's no real expression of actually what turned him this way or made him so bad, or what the realization was that you have to act like this, or whether it was like an activation of something in him that he realized he was good at being a dick. There's nothing like that. It's just it happens.
Yes. Anyway, blah.
But let's finish by saying that the performances are great, and watching the characters play together I think is really good fun. Despite the fact that it's not adding up to an awful lot.
Yes.
And it's better than Saturday Night Live. Which is not saying enough.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there are moments in Saturday Night Live when I watched them as a teenager in my 20s that have stayed with me my whole life. I don't think there's anything in this that will stay with me like 10 seconds. So,
probably. I think Saturday Night Live shit. To be fair. I think Saturday Night Live shit.
Saturday Night Live is 40 years old or whatever, so you have to talk about what's Saturday Night Live, and this is not the conversation.
But I think modern Saturday Night Live I think is still shit.
Well, I don't watch it now, so I couldn't tell you, or I can't engage with that. But
When people say, "Oh, look at Melissa McCarthy doing whatever his name was, the press secretary," or look at Alec Baldwin doing Trump, it's like, yeah, is this the height of satire? Anyway,
well, they've got like a few days to do it. You know, this is a proper movie. They've had a lot more time, a lot more money. And actually, I think, you know, as a movie, it's very unimpressive.
Yeah. I'd say if you want to see people playing presidents that's better than this, remember the Butler, the Lee Daniels film? I like that. And it's got Alan Rickman. It's got
Shiver.
No, I like that film. It's got Alan Rickman playing.
That's a terrible film.
No, it's not. It's not a great film, but it's better than this. And it's got Alan Rickman playing Reagan, and that's enormously good fun. And Fonda playing Nancy.
I know.
That was good fun, that.
Anyway, Tyler Perry as Colin Powell, you know, was a surprise. And I thought, that's the campest Colin Powell I have ever seen. I really...
In front of the UN going, we need to go to war.
Oh, yes.
But I did watch The Big Short again recently and liked it more than I did the first time. I wonder if I'll like this more in a couple of years. Who knows?
Maybe. I couldn't even be bothered to watch The Big Short again.
Oh no, it was good. It is.
I remember you only liking the Margot Robbie bit initially.
No. Well, I probably did like that. But actually, in retrospect, I think that's one of the worst bits of the film.
Ah.
Because what the film really does is, in those moments where it says, we're going to explain something, let's stop the narrative for a second and explain some technical jargon, then it either if it uses a woman, then it's because she's a sexy woman.
Yes.
It's Margot Robbie, or is it Selena Gomez?
I remember, yeah.
And then if they use a man, it's not because he's a sexy man, it's because he's an expert of some sort. So they use Anthony Bourdain, and they use some economic policy guy who stands next to Selena Gomez. It's like, that's pretty sexist. We're using her for her looks, we're using him for his knowledge, you know? But no, when I watched it recently, it was on iPlayer, it might still be, I don't know. I turned it on about 20 minutes in, which is around when the Margot Robbie scene happens. And then I thought I was just going to watch a bit of it. And I just sat through the rest. I mean, it really keeps you going, and it's got a lot more energy and a lot more tempo. And I think, it doesn't lull. This lulls. You know, that doesn't lull Big Short. And actually, that's a good movie.
Okay.
Not amazing, but good.
You may be right. I mean, this might be, more fun to watch.
Maybe. It does have that moralising thing at the end, which we both commented on when we saw it, The Big Short. This is where it was the crocodile tears for the poor, which is like, oh. The film doesn't really care.
Or this one, he's got such a black heart.
Yeah, exactly. It tells you things you'd like to hear, and it's not challenging enough. And that's probably something it does have in common with this, that neither of them challenge you in any way. Really, they just tell you things you'd like to hear. Yeah.
Anyway, let's wrap it up here.
Yes.
If I think it's still worth seeing if you're interested in actors and acting. There are some absolutely marvelous performances here. Some of which are probably going to, win some of these seasons' prizes at least. So that's a reason to see it on its own.
Yeah. Christian Bale's. Well, it's going to be probably between Christian Bale and Rami Malek, isn't it? The Oscar. Do you think there's got to be some better performance out there? Because these are both what they are is both good impressions, rather than really good performances.
Yeah.
That's being a bit unfair, but
who are the other nominees?
Oh, actually, they did come out, didn't they? I haven't seen.
They have come out.
I never bothered looking.
I think Malik has competition.
Let me just have a quick look. We'll finish off with this. We'll just talk about the actors. Spike Lee's up for Best Director for BlacKkKlansman. I had no idea. That's great. Best Actor. It's Christian Bale, Bradley Cooper for A Star Is Born, Willem Dafoe for At Eternity's Gate.
I haven't seen it.
Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody and Viggo Mortensen for Green Book, which again I've not seen.
We haven't seen. Well, of the ones that we have seen, I actually would go with Malek.
Yeah, so would I. Yeah. Yeah. Well, although I'd go for Bale for the makeup. Rami Malek's
best makeup for the makeup guy or girl or woman who did Bale.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and Best Actress?
Who have we got for Best Actress?
Amy Adams might be there.
She's not. I think she might be under supporting. She's for supporting.
Right.
Supporting actress is Amy Adams, Marina Di Tariva Roma. She's the mother in Roma.
Yeah.
Regina King for If Beale Street Could Talk.
I haven't seen that.
And for the favourite, Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz.
Oh my god. I want Rachel Weisz to win just for being fabulous.
She is great. Best actress rather than supporting actress are Yalitza Aparicio, Roma.
Yeah. No.
Glenn Close for The Wife.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, we missed that. I don't think it's going to come round again. Olivia Colman, favourite.
Yes, she deserves it.
Lady Gaga, Star is Born.
Please.
Melissa McCarthy, Can You Ever Forgive Me? Which
I haven't seen that, though.
I think that's coming out soon. But
There's a
certainly
preview on Thursday of that, actually, so we will see it soon.
Certainly Olivia Colman. Director, Alfonso Cuarón, Roma. Yorgos Lanthimos, The Favourite. Spike Lee, Black Klansman. Adam McKay, Vice. Don't think so. And Pavel Pawlikowski, Cold War.
I love Cold War, actually. So, say those again?
Cuarón, Lanthimos, Lee.
It's between Lanthimos and
Pawlikowski. Yeah, I'd say that you're probably right there. Best Picture, we may as well just go through now. Best Picture, Black Panther, Black Klansman.
Black Panther's wonderful.
Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favourite, Green Book, Roma, A Star Is Born, and Vice.
Well, listen, and that's, to me, the most deserving films would be Black Panther or The Favourite. Those would be my top choices of that list.
Of those, the only one of those we haven't seen is Green Book. Yeah. And that's the one that people are really criticising for being like the white man's version of a black film.
Yeah, or Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah, that's what people think of it. But of the ones that we've seen, which is most of them, it would be Black Klansman or The Favourite for me.
No, I love Black Panther.
Black Panther's fantastic.
Yeah.
But
for me,
Black Klansman is best.
Well, if you're choosing just best film for being best of that list, I would choose either The Favourite or Black Panther, and not Black Klansman.
Fair enough. Best supporting actor, Green Book, Mahershala Ali. Haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Adam Driver, Black Klansman. Sam Elliott, Star Is Born. Richard E. Grant, Can You Ever Forgive Me? And Sam Rockwell in Vice.
I would choose Adam Driver.
So would I. Screenplay, original screenplay, The Favourite, First Reformed, Green Book, Roma, and Vice.
The Favourite.
Yeah. Adapted screenplay, A Star Is Born, Ballad of Buster Scruggs, Black Klansman, If Beale Street Could Talk, and Can You Ever Forgive Me? We haven't seen If Beale Street Could Talk, and that's a big one.
Yeah. What is Can You Ever Forgive Me? Can you remind me?
Can You Ever Forgive Me? It's this Melissa McCarthy thing, and I don't know very much about it.
Yeah, okay.
Makeup and hairstyling, Vice is in there.
Well,
it's Border, Mary Queen of Scots, and Vice. Costume is Buster Scruggs, Black Panther, The Favourite, Mary Poppins, and Mary Queen of Scots.
Black Panther.
You love it. You love a catsuit.
I love a catsuit.
Cinematography is The Favourite, Never Look Away, Roma, A Star Is Born, and Cold War.
Cold War.
You love it. Original song, who cares? Original score, Black Panther, and some other stuff. Isle of Dogs. Ooh, Isle of Dogs is great. I'm not going to read the others because I want Isle of Dogs to win.
All right, let's end it here.
And there's the rest. So there you go.
We'll come back to Oscar picks. We might kind of do.
Well, I'll have to come over when the Oscars is on, like we did last year, and we didn't record anything.
Alrighty. Oh. Thank you very much for listening. We are eavesdropping at the movies, and we are
on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter, and we're at eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Okay.
Bye bye.